Okay, this March 14th, 2018 meeting of the Oyster River Cooperative School Board will come to order. I have two housekeeping issues I'd like to take care of before we get started. I wonder if it's possible to postpone the homework workshop till April 11th. There have been so many snow days that the high school committee has not been able to work, to kind of work towards developing proposals and responding to the survey. And so I think what's going to happen is Wendy's going to send out an email seeing that if April 11th is workable for us. So I think the 28th is off because the committee's not ready. Okay, so she'll send, and then there'll be a confirmation on that. The other housekeeping issue is Dan and I have done our 6 months on the Manifest Committee.
Oh, man.
Hold your applause, please.
And the rest of the board here feel that you are doing such a wonderful job. We would love for you to continue.
That's very gratifying, Kenny. I appreciate that sincere compliment. But I would like to move that Denise and Brian do the next 6 months with Kenny, you as the alternate. Is that
sure?
So I'd like to make that motion. Could I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Al. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And I think Denise may not be able to make it the next time.
First one, I need the alternate.
So if you can do it. And
Wait, could we, this should have been said before the vote took place.
well, if you can't, we'll find somebody else, but I know.
Because I didn't have it.
Okay, so that's that.
No problem.
Okay, could we have an approval of the agenda? Motion to approve the agenda, Al?
So moved.
Moved by Al, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Denise. Any changes, additions? All those in favor, raise your hands. The agenda is approved. Public comment? Hearing none, okay. Approval of the minutes, can I have a motion to approve the February 21st minutes? Denise?
I motion to approve the February 21st regular meeting minutes.
Moved by Denise, is second. Brian? Okay. Corrections? Denise?
I have two small ones. The first one is on page 4. Under my comment under board comments, when I was talking about the second comment about appreciating all the community members who have come out to speak this evening. We've gotten a lot of feedback on the survey. I'd like to insert the survey is meant to be only the first step in the process.
Okay.
Just to insert that in there.
Okay.
And then on page 6.
Denise, would
Yep.
you want to put in there what the topic of the survey was too?
Well, it does. It says it. Oh, you're right. It doesn't really say. It was a cell phone survey.
Right, so it doesn't even.
You're right. You're right. Good catch. So gotten a lot of feedback on the cell phone survey that was sent out, and then just add that it's meant to be only the first step in the process.
Okay.
And then the second thing is on page 6. When we were talking about reverting March 23rd and May 25th back to student days, I'd just like to insert right after Dr. Morse's comment that I asked for an examination of an alternative to the 2-hour delay.
Okay. Do you have those? Okay. Other corrections? Okay, with those corrections, could we have a vote? All those in favor, please raise your hand. 6 in favor. The minutes are approved. Okay. Announcements, accommodations, comments from the district? None? Okay.
Now they're getting up.
Oh,
Too fast there. Moving.
Gee, you guys are slow.
Sorry, I'm slow. I just have a few. Noah Strout went to the Meet of Champions, which is a meet with students from all divisions in the state of New Hampshire, and won in his weight class. He then went on to New England's, where he came in 2nd place, which has qualified him to go to nationals in Virginia Beach, and he'll be going on March 23rd and 25th. So we want to congratulate Noah and wish him much luck.
Awesome.
We also have 3 students from our SALT group, which is our student athlete leadership team, and they will be going to a statewide leadership conference in Mount Washington. hotel, and that is Devin McLean, Joe Morrell, Maddie Alphonse, and we're going to have Nicole Casimiro chaperone them, and we are excited for them to participate in that leadership opportunity. As many people know, our boys varsity basketball team is moving ahead into the championship game for Division II. We had an exciting game this week, and we look forward to that championship game on Saturday at 3 o'clock, where they will be playing Hollis Brookline. And Sophia Testa, who's a 9th grader, will be singing the national anthem. I believe it's been 22 years since
1996.
Yeah, 1996, since the team has gone to the championship, so we're really excited about that. There's a lot of energy at the high school right now. Unified Basketball had one of their playoff games today. They fought hard against Exeter in the quarterfinals, but they did in fact lose. But we want to congratulate all of them for making it to the quarterfinals game. The students at the high school had planned to walk out today. They have postponed that due to the weather, as some other local high schools have. And they will, my understanding is from the Student Senate, is that they will be participating in the April 20th walkout. And last couple announcements are coming from the counseling department. Counselors are meeting with students, the 9th, 10th, and 11th graders right now. It will take them through probably it takes them a couple of months to meet with every single student on their caseload, but they speak with every student about their plans and their dreams and how they can personalize their education while they're here at the high school to help them create the best path for them with course selection. And so that's going on right now in the counseling office. They're very busy, so if anyone tries to reach out to their counselor and they get an automatic reply saying that they're in meetings, please be patient with them. They will get back to you. Just take them a little bit of additional time. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Suzanne, have the counselors put that in their email notice that they're...
Yes, they have.
Perfect. And on their voicemail?
Yes, they have. Well, a lot of the phone calls go directly to Sandy.
Okay.
And she gives that information.
Thanks.
Yep.
Good evening, Jay Richard, the principal at the middle school. Just a couple quick notes. We had close to 30 students be recognized for the Scholastic Writing Awards. Big credit to Kim Donovan and Linda Reef and all the teachers in the district who teach writing. I look forward to that celebration up at Plymouth State in May. That's very exciting. As you know, we've kind of really moved to like a STEM program. Our robotics program is very popular at the middle school, and we had a state champion this year. The team of Michael O'Loughlin, Kelly Zhang, Andrew Kelly, and Vincent Zhao. They came in first place in the state, so they're actually going to be participating in the Robotics National Championship in Kentucky in late April, so that's very, very exciting. We also had our Spotlight School visit last week. We had 3 assessors come in. I look forward to sharing that report with the school board. Very, very positive comments initially, so again, I look forward to that report. And in terms of the walkout, we did have 3 students today participate in the walkout. Good for them, nothing but positive, so just want to share that with you. Thank you.
Good evening, Carrie Vaish from Mastway.
And good evening, David Goldsmith from Meharmet.
We just have a few things to share. First off, the week before February vacation and the week following vacation, both of our schools celebrated Read Across America. We had a number of events going on. It's a time-honored tradition at Mastway. We had a lot of things going on, including guest readers. I believe Denise came over and Dr. Morris read. We had a lot of UNH athletes come to read. We had all-school meetings, and we actually had Eric Flame come, who is a U.S. Olympian, which was really neat, happening during the Olympics and everything. He gave a great message to the kids that if there's anything you want to do, you can do it. It's going to be hard, but you can do it. He was really, really motivating to the children, which was great. We also had our UNH interns, they presented a great skit based on a book that they read, and it was a great event for everyone. So I'd like to thank the Read Across America Committee for really putting in a lot of hours to make that happen. Both of our schools are collaborating on a number of things this year, which is great. The one thing I wanted to mention was Science Fridays. In past years, we've worked with the robotics team at UNH for fourth graders to learn more about hands-on science activities and robotics and that sort of thing. This year, we have our tech integrators, Sarah Curtin and Susan Leifer, hosting that at Mastway. So we're able to have the UNH kids come to our school, Mohammed kids come on over. It was actually really fun greeting them on Friday. They're like, this school's big. I'm like, really? But it was wonderful hands-on activities. They're there after school on a Friday, and it was really nice to have Mastway and Mohammed kids teaming together. So I'd like to thank those two teachers for leading 40 students. It filled up. We said we could take 20 from each school, and it filled up. So they're planning some other opportunities for those kids that weren't able to participate in the spring. Tomorrow night, we also have Sarah and Susan hosting a joint Mastway Mohammed PTO meeting over at Mohammed. They'll be talking about internet safety. So this is something that we had talked about last year that parents are really asking for, looking for more feedback, looking for input in ways that they can keep their students safe while being on the computer. And lastly, I think at the end of the month, we'll be having our annual book fair, so more information will be coming forward for that.
And I would add that at Mohammed, in the past few weeks, we've had a number of really exciting activities and events happen. We had our Taste of Mohammed potluck evening. Families brought food from that was represented their culture, and we celebrated the diverse cultures at our school. We had a student art show happening that was put on by, organized by some parents of the PTO as well. We had an UNH a cappella group singing that night as well. It was a lovely event. We also had our annual Penny Day, which happens on the 100th day of school, and traditionally our school students bring in 100 pennies and other change if they want to as well, and we raise money for a cause. This year the money went to help support the rebuilding of Puerto Rico, and we worked with a PhD student at UNH who's been organizing to support some of the agricultural areas in the middle of the island. She was able to come to an assembly and speak to the students and show them some slides of how the rebuilding was going there. So that was really exciting and touching for everybody. We've also had a chess club that started, in addition to all the other enrichment activities that we have going on Mondays after school. We have over 30 students participating in that, which is very exciting. That's being led by a grandfather of a student of ours, who is a former educator as well. And lastly, I just want to say publicly that both schools were in the middle of kindergarten registration. So if any of you know anybody in town, and if anyone who's watching or listening knows of families who have students who will be of kindergarten age in the fall, they should come to our schools and register. Thanks very much.
David, could I just ask you how the the movement from the modulars into the schools?
Yes. That went very well. I can't speak highly enough of the faculty and staff at my school and the facilities and the IT departments of this district. Everyone in a very short amount of time worked so well together. The students helped the teachers pack up. Facilities moved everything. IT took care of the technical things. We were in a little bit over vacation as well to do some of the big moves, and then the teachers were there setting up. And it was pretty seamless. On the Monday when we came back from vacation, students went directly to their new classrooms and started a day of learning like they hadn't skipped a beat. It was great.
I think that's what professionalism is. Thank you.
It was pretty terrific. Thank you very much.
Announcements, I'm sorry, I don't want to rush. We all set? Okay. Announcements, commendations, and comments from the board? No?
I have one. Actually, it's a job listing, and Suzanne can probably fill in the high schoolers. But one of the last Durham Town Council meetings, the town administrator talked to me, and Department of Public Works has openings in the summer. And actually what it is they traditionally have used college students, and they work and they mow all the public lands of Durham, and you get to know all the cemeteries. And last year, actually, my son was one of them. It's a really great gig. You get 40 hours a week. It runs all summer, and it'll be open actually to Oyster River High School graduating seniors. Suzanne will probably see it because she gets Friday updates, so I would throw it out there. Again, it's a good gig.
Denise?
Next Wednesday evening is a community meal. I believe it starts at 5 o'clock. And also, there's a wellness fair, I believe, that piggybacks on that as well. So if folks haven't checked out one of the community meals that are held in the cafeteria, it's definitely, the meals are delicious and well worth checking out. Bring the whole family.
Okay. I just have Kenny, go ahead.
You can go.
Okay, just mention the girls' hockey. They made the semifinals, and going from a time when they had trouble really getting a team to playing against the top teams, playing competitively against the top teams. I think this is a real achievement, so congratulations to them. I just want to mention that last week I went to Concord to testify against the amendment to the Senate Bill 193. Senate Bill 193 it's kind of in motion. It's constantly changing. And at the time, the bill that was amended had stabilization grants and opened up to a far bigger population. They determined that would be very expensive to the state, and so then there was a downshifting to local schools, and the stabilization grant was converted just to a one-time payment of $1,500, and the threshold was set at 185%, which is a school kind of if you get a free school lunch at that. So that what I mentioned, not to go into too much detail, but essentially Oyster River has 6% of its population in that category. So pretty much it has not too much effect on us. It would maybe a minor effect. But if you look at Manchester, where you might have 50% students in that category, it really has the capacity to do real damage, I think, to urban schools like that. And so the testimony was predominantly negative, and you had a sense that the bill was unpopular with the proponents of the voucher system because it was so complicated and cumbersome now, and it's unpopular with those who opposed it. So kind of an interesting, and things are really in play there. So that was interesting. So Kenny?
Yeah, so, but maybe to tag on to that, the first thing I was going to say is it's just to hear of all the activities in our schools and the accomplishments, both academic and athletic. It's just, I think it's why we're all involved, and knowing that we are a community that relatively is very supportive of education. Look at the vote yesterday to support, and certainly to think outside of ourselves, though, is very important, because there are other districts who don't have the resources we have. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is just to recognize the 3 students today who walked out of the middle school, and understanding that our high school students made a decision based on our late start. But just to recognize all the students all across our country who are starting a movement to speak against gun violence, and maybe that's where it's going to come from. And I'm just feel that these kids are amazing. I hear the way that they speak in formal interviews, reading things that they've written, and they are to be admired, and I applaud them.
Thank you. Others? Okay. Assistant Superintendent?
I'll be brief. I just have a couple of things I wanted to tell you about. With all the snow days we've been having, it's taken me a little longer to finish this task than I had originally set out, but I've been doing the rounds of staff meetings with all the different schools in the district to talk about this New Hampshire standardized testing. Just to let you know, New Hampshire moved away from the Smarter Balance test last year, so we're now on what's called the SAS, the New Hampshire Standardized Assessment System. So it's a new test. It's a couple of good things about it. Number one, it is a shorter test, so it takes less time. and it is broken into 3 components that are all computer adaptive, meaning that the test is much like the STAR assessment our kids do, where as they do the test, depending on how they answer, the test gets harder or longer depending on the answers the students give. There are 3 tests. There's a math test, there's a reading test, and there's a writing test. They're all on the computer. It's for grades 3 through 8, and I'll talk about grade 11 as a separate thing, but 3 through 8 are all doing the New Hampshire SAS. 5th and 8th grade also do a science assessment through the same system. Net result to us as a district is it's a lot less time spent on testing. Roughly 3 hours per kid is about how much less testing that is taking place. The one thing that will be happening is because they moved science from 4th to 5th grade, it does mean Jay will be managing New Hampshire SAS in 5th through 8th grade, as well as science assessments in 5th and 8th grade. So it's a little bit more of a burden to Jay, but Jay loves standardized testing, and he's really good at managing it, and he'll make it work. Love it. Well, maybe love it is. We've been in the process of kind of working out schedules, but basically what it looks like is going to happen is at the 2 elementary schools, they'll be doing the testing in May. Jay will probably start with the ELA in April and then do math in May. The science part, we're going to kind of keep that as a separate variable so we can plug it in where it makes the most sense. As I mentioned, the high school is a little bit different. The high school does SATs as their assessment. They don't do New Hampshire SAS for everything else, but they will do a science assessment through the New Hampshire SAS system, and it's a 2-hour science assessment. I'll be working with the high school science department to figure out what's the best way to go about implementing that. But all of that will take place in the largely in the month of May is when most of that is going to take place, with the exception of April being a point where the middle school starts on its ELA. So that's going on. I'll tell you a lot more about it once we have schedules hammered out and more details. Teachers have been very happy to see that the implementation side of it is the same as the Smarter Balance. There's not a lot of additional training that has to go on. It's very similar in terms of the interface for teachers and for kids. And again, the test is all computer adaptive. Any questions about that?
Yeah, just so to be clear, like, my understanding is that the Smarter Balance test was almost 10 hours, is that right? And
I think that's about right, yeah.
And this is 3 less or 3 hours?
It's 3 2-hour tests. So it'd be a total of 6 hours.
6 hours, go for 10 to 6.
Well, the Smarter Balance test, one of the ways that's different in this test is they used to also have what's called a performance task, and that created a very open-ended time frame. So it was harder for us. I mean, you're right, you could do as much as 10, but that wasn't typically the average. So I used with about 3 hours less is our expected average.
Okay.
But yeah, it absolutely is significantly less testing, and I think it's going to be more manageable, and hopefully then the data will be more readily available too, because the New Hampshire SAS system is a test that has been created for the state of New Hampshire, so we have more control over it, and we'll have the data much quicker.
Todd, the state had applied for a waiver so that the testing would only happen once in the elementary, once in the middle school, and once at the high school. Do we have a status report from the state related to that waiver?
The last report I heard is they're not terribly optimistic that that waiver is going to get approved. However, if it were to be approved, it would not be for this year, it would be for the following year. A lot of it ties into the ESSA accountability plans that everybody's responsible for, and there's significant debate as to whether, like in our system, if we did if the waiver request was approved, we would have to give 1 round of state testing in elementary, 1 round in middle, and 1 round in high school, and the rest of the time we have to have some other assessment that we're doing. For us, it would be STAR, because we do that with all kids starting in grade 2 all the way up through grade 10. There's some debate as to whether that would constitute a standardized measure that would be approved by the feds. So it's still up in the air, but they're not that optimistic that it's going to be approved.
Thank you.
And the other thing I just want to mention real quick is we're in the final stages of preparing the REACH program catalog. We hope to have that out by the end of this month. We have, the snow days have had some impact on us getting organized because we're trying to have meetings of instructors to kind of pull together our program, and we've had to change that a couple of different times. I'm hoping this Friday afternoon I'll be able to finalize that and we can get the program ready. My goal is to have that out for all to see by the end of the month, and parents can sign up. But as Kenny mentioned the last meeting, the program is a partnership between the school district and the Durham Parks and Rec. It starts the week of July 9th, and it runs for 5 weeks through the second week of August. It's a program open through all students, grades 1 through 8, and parents can pick and choose whether they want just a morning program, if they want a morning and an afternoon program, and whether they want a 5-day-a-week program, because Durham Parks and Rec also runs an all-day field experience every Friday, and free lunch is thrown in the middle. So it's a great program, so parents, please be on the lookout for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Superintendent's report?
First of all, I want to send out the recognition that Todd Selleck sent out and moderator Richard Laughlin sent out to the community, recognizing the good work, not just of the police department during elections, but also of our custodial staff, our maintenance staff, and our food service staff. Quite frankly, I personally didn't think the food service staff were going to make it in the storm, and they showed up to service the people who work at the high school during voting. And the custodial staff were singled out by both the moderator and town administrator for their excellence in keeping the space safe, dry. The maintenance people for making sure that the parking areas were plowed continuously through the storm, and for the food service people for providing the food throughout the day. So since they've recognized them, I wanted to make sure that you were aware of what a great job they did on behalf of the citizens of the community. I also want to thank the community. There was a huge storm yesterday, and 1,099 people made it to the polls in spite of the storm. And again, if you look at town administrator's report, he shows people coming in on skis and a whole host of different ways they made it to the polls. But they made it to the polls, and I'll do the official results at the next meeting, but unofficially, our budget passed with a wide margin. And I cannot thank all 1,099 people who made it to the polls, whether they voted for the budget or against it, the material. It was really a major effort by our community to make sure that our school budget was voted on. So thank you to everybody who put out that kind of effort. It was extraordinary. Administrators, functions. And I think those were the things that I wanted to talk about tonight, so I think I'm done.
Okay. Business administrator? No? Student Senate? Hannah Jane's not here. So we're ready for the sustainability report. So Maggie? Thanks.
Oh, I did want to talk one more thing.
Yes,
Sorry,
one more.
Maggie.
Yeah.
I knew that I was forgetting something. In your packet, I put a draft letter to Commissioner Edelbert about asking for a waiver of the 2 days we had to take in October due to the hurricane, trees down, power outage. Brian probably remembers the power line separating the highway over by Massway. So we have asked for those 2 days to be waived. Rumor on the street from my fellow superintendents is many superintendents are putting their request in for those days, and so we're hoping the commissioner would act with a positive result, and that would put 2 more days, basically hold harmless on those 2 days.
Could I just ask a question of where we stand now? I realize there might be some snow next week, so who knows? But
Sure.
if this is the last snow, would we still have the hours in the elementary school to finish, the 22nd?
Mm-hmm. I got an email from Denise, and I asked Todd to be ready to answer that question tonight. So Todd, do you mind coming to the microphone again?
Refresh my memory, what question?
The question is, if there are no more snow, because I know we have more hours than the minimum, then.
Right.
So that if there is no more snow, we have no more snow days, could we legitimately finish the school year, like, I think it's June 22nd, and not have to go over to the next week?
Absolutely, yes. In fact, right now, if we finished on June 22nd, we would be making up the 2 October days as well as all of the snow days. So we
Okay.
would be 100%, with the exception of we have lost 8 hours because of delayed starts. But we are well within it. So
At all this, at both elementary?
At all levels. At all
Okay.
levels. The elementary is about 34 and a half hours, I believe, above where they need to be.
Okay, great. Denise?
And then my other question with that was about the seniors, because when we approved graduation, and I couldn't remember the exact, what we said exactly, but I know that they were cutting it really close.
Actually, our seniors, again, this is I'm just quoting the minimum standard. I'm not, so 960 hours is the minimum number of hours that seniors must have in order to graduate. And again, they would be 900 and...
I haven't done the calculations.
It was-
We had 30.
Suzanne, you got to come to the microphone.
I apologize. I haven't done the calculations, but when we determined the date, we had 30 hours, 30 and a half hours over the minimum.
Okay.
So we're still okay.
Still with it, we're still
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
So basically,
Thank
we
you.
would be,
Welcome.
if we lost one more day, which is what you're asking, what would that do? We'd be 22 and a half hours
Okay, we're still in good shape.
Yep.
Okay,
And
good.
asking the commissioner for the waiver of those 2 days just adds an additional buffer.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay. Sustainability.
Want me to report on that? Al just reminded, sorry, that the board's request, myself and Al and Kenny couldn't be at this particular meeting, met with the town administrator in Durham to start talking about whether it's possible for a venue other than the high school to be a voting location for the town of Durham. And so that conversation is open at this point. We've had our initial meeting. We have no recommendation either to this body or the council at this point because that investigation is ongoing. We also talked about, if that's not possible, what we could do here to make sure that our students were safe. So that's really the essence of that.
Great.
Yeah.
So you okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. Sustainability.
That is something.
One more time. Third time's a charm.
That's it.
Sorry, guys.
You have the floor, believe me.
Hi, I'm Maggie Morrison. Thank you for having us tonight. Last fall, the school board recognized the changes to the Sustainability Committee to be an advisor committee with 2 sustainability coordinators. This allowed us as coordinators to be more robust in our activities, and I just want to give you some things of what we've been doing this year. Next week, we'll start our first after-school program, enrichment program, Earth Ambassadors. We have over 16 third and fourth graders that will be held at Moharmet, hoping to have a fall program at Massway. We'll have a movie and panel discussion on March 21st. It's going to be a very busy day, evening at the high school on next week. We've created an expanded field experiences for second and fourth graders, and we're working with the fifth grade team to work on some field experiences for that grade level as well. We've been working with the high school SUS Club and the middle school Save the Earth Club. And the high school and middle school, we've been helping them evaluate their trash systems and how they can better manage and reduce their waste. Our changed structure also has allowed us to utilize working groups that address emerging issues that are identified by Dr. Morris and you. I'd like to turn to my colleague, Jacqueline Brune, who is going to present the 2 recommendations that you have before you that were endorsed by the Sustainability Advisory Committee.
So Jacqueline Brune, Sustainability Coordinator. I'm going to start with the plastic water bottle one. I'm not going to read it. You guys all have it in your packets. When we were coming up with this, creating these recommendations and using our working groups and using the advisory committee, we talked a lot about how to contain this information and how best to present it. And we decided that using the school district's environmental sustainability policy as our basis for that. And that's, the format that you're seeing in front of you. So in particular, the single-use plastic water bottles, this is obviously a global issue with single-use plastics, whether it's water bottles or plastic bags. And really for us, the issue is around budget, that the single-use plastic water bottles bring in approximately $35,000 annually to the food nutrition budget, which is significant. Doris Demers is part of this committee, so she was involved in these discussions, but that's definitely something for the board to be thinking about. And then in terms of what we came up with as a recommendation was starting with the 2 elementary schools, which is a smaller piece of the pie. Certainly it's about $5,000 of profit for the single-use plastic water bottles. Many fewer are sold at that level. And we felt that this was a good way to start educating families in the district about this issue and hopefully changing behavior so that people will stop using single-use plastic water bottles. At the elementary level, there are water fountains in every classroom. There's 2 hydration stations. There's water in the cafeteria. There's a lot of water everywhere. So that said, I think Doris is anticipating that there potentially will be some pushback because there is a lot of convenience, as we all know, around having plastic water bottles available. So there was discussion, I'll say, at the committee, which Brian was there for, where there was a little discussion about, pulling the Band-Aid off and getting rid of all the plastic water bottles, which we are not recommending. But I think this is a really great start. We considered whether we would start it in September, just back to school, no more water bottles at those 2 schools, or starting it in conjunction with Earth Day. Earth Day falls on April break this year, so we would do something the week before to, announce that we're no longer doing this. Any questions?
Denise?
Well, and forgive me if it's in here, in terms of, so as far as Moharriman and Mast Way, so how much of the total?
It's $5,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in there. And that's approximate, these numbers are kind of hard to pull out of Doris's budget, and each month is a little different. When it's hotter, there's more sold. When it's colder, there's less. Kids also buy milk. And some kids do bring water bottles, their own water bottles to lunches and refill them. And water coolers are available currently in both cafeterias. It's a legal thing for doors.
I just have maybe a question that we're going to have to deal with. It. Whatever money is, if there's revenue that's not coming into Doris's budget, we're going to have to, there's a budgetary issue there, because rather than having Doris to suffer, to lose that money, we're going to have to find the money to compensate, I think.
I do.
So I think in terms of timing, there's an issue of how, are there resources that we could shift to her budget so that she's held harmless by this change? And so I don't know, that's a timing issue, right?
Right.
If we decide to go forward, right?
Well, and the issue is Doris's budget is, as you guys know, separate from our general account. And at the end of last year, she made about $18,000 that she then turns back into the program. So if this program is implemented this fall, we'll know by the end of June whether she again was able to generate income above her expenses. And so it may be that she'll be able to cover it herself. But I think when we switch over to the middle school and the high school, she won't be able to. And so I think starting at Massway and Moharriman, it's possible, we'll see how the end of the year goes, that she'll be able to absorb this pilot, if we use the term pilot, to see how it goes. So I think we'll be okay.
Okay. Denise?
Yeah, I definitely see it as two separate, like, I could definitely support this, but I think particularly when you're talking high school and you're talking, I'm just thinking about that the basketball game was at UNH, but like, when people do come from out of town, for games and such, and, to me, talking about the high school is a whole different thing in terms of availability of people, being able to buy things, but certainly, so I would look at
So this
elementary
doesn't-
school
yeah.
and seeing how that goes,
So
basically.
we didn't look at like boosters or sports events. We looked at like cafeterias, the 35,000 the water bottles that are purchased by the school district, as opposed to like a booster group or the PTA.
So that's just in the cafeteria,
This is,
for
yes,
students?
Doris's budget, yes,
Oh.
it's not, because that's, I
It's
mean.
not, okay.
Yeah, so we had to keep the scope pretty narrow, because there's, like you say, yeah, and then the PTO or the PTAs have events at schools, and they might sell water bottles, and that's different, so it's, yeah, there's a lot of water bottles. Yeah.
Okay.
Kenny?
So a question, and maybe there'll be a follow-up. So in the consideration and how you presented it, I think you raised two issues. One was the financial impact, and the other is sort of that social impact and kind of the mindset. Did one of those take a great deal of precedence in your trying to establish a way to go forward?
I think in terms of the committee, and I don't know, Maggie, feel free to jump in, or Brian, because you were at these meetings. I think the committee was looking at the issue of single-use plastic water bottles as a global issue, and that was more the perspective as opposed to the budget. I think choosing the two elementary schools and the numbers, and it was just much more manageable to go from that perspective. So you're talking more about the parent piece, or the?
I just was, I mean, so to me, obviously the district is making money off of selling water in bottles. That money is good for the district, but really, should the district be making money off of selling water in bottles?
Right.
And my feeling is that's not where we want to be getting our money from. I mean, do we sell candy? We could make lots of money selling candy in candy machines, but we don't. And so I just support efforts to move sooner than later to make our schools more environmentally sustainable, which is really an overarching, goal in our strategic plan. And I think there's no need for separate water bottles. People have used water coolers for years. We could have paper cups.
So it's very similar to the decision we made not to use styrofoam, Ken. It's an environmental issue. It would be cheaper for us to buy styrofoam than it is to buy paper, and we decided to use our dishwashers and use renewable resources. So the Sustainability Committee exists exactly for this reason. Just because we're doing something doesn't necessarily make it environmentally sound, and so I really applaud the committee for the hard work they do, because sometimes it does break down into a money issue. I think the next one would show that, the next example they have that they're not recommending. So, I think moving in this direction is exactly the right direction we should be moving in, and I applaud the effort.
So can I just ask a procedural question? Would this be something we could put on an agenda for a vote? Does it need a vote from us? Is this something you would decide? I mean, I'm trying to think.
So annually, we have had the committee present its goals to us, and you approved their goals in the fall, and this is in line with those goals. So I can do this administratively because you've already approved their goals for the year.
So you wouldn't feel more comfortable with a vote for them?
I'm always more comfortable when the board. So I would be very comfortable with the board vote just because I think it repurposes our commitment to sustainability. It restates, quite frankly, what Kenny just articulated, that sometimes we need to make decisions that may not be popular but are the right decisions. So if the board moves to support this, I would be thrilled because I think it just reinforces all of their efforts.
And it's a big decision. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think this is a really good way to do it, because first of all, you tend to, we've been paralyzed because the money has been big enough that we haven't been able to figure out how to overcome the money issue, and by starting out smaller at the middle schools, it gives you something to show it can work, first of all, and also then it begins to change behavior, hopefully, so that as the elementary kids go to the middle school, they already have the habit of bringing their own water bottle, and we aren't like having to fight a new battle. It just will become a natural thing. And I think then the money thing we can figure out, because again, we already have a model that we work from. So I think it's a good way to break the log jam, so I think it's a good idea.
Brian?
You want to make a motion?
Doris already has, I believe, cups that she hands out for the kids.
I'm sorry?
There's already reusable cups available to these kids to use in lieu of the water bottles. And these are the small water bottles, not the big ones you see in the middle school or the high school. These are the little tiny ones. That's why there's not as much of an issue with profit margin. They're very small with the small bottles, where they're a lot larger with the bigger bottles.
Okay.
That's kind of how we narrowed it down to that area.
Okay. Just would the board feel comfortable putting this as a vote on a future?
You could do it tonight if you wanted to.
The only question I have with that is, what about the date? Are we doing it Earth Day, or are we doing it in the fall? Because if we're going to make a motion, we should probably have when we're going to do it.
What's your preference?
No pressure.
I think, we had talked about doing it as part of the Earth Ambassadors, since they're going to start next week, and they're going to wrap up the week of Earth Day, and that we would be folding it into that after-school work somehow. We hadn't figured out exactly how, because that's where.
So this is part of the goals the board already supported, so I think you could take a vote on affirmation tonight, Tom. It's not a new item, it's just continuing.
Without a date, with that date in mind?
Could I take a stab at it?
Sure.
So in recognition of upcoming Earth Day in April of 2018, the school board supports the recommendation of the Sustainable Advisory Committee to move away from the selling of single-use plastic water bottles at Mastway and Mohammed schools.
Move away, is that?
How about end?
End,
To
the sale of?
To end? Okay.
How about to end?
To end, that's clear.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, is there a second? Second by Brian. Discussion? All those, ready to vote? All those in favor, raise your hand. 6 in favor. Okay.
Great, thank you. Okay, so the second one, it was a little more straightforward. Propane, Dr. Morse approached us about changing the bus replacement process and adding either propane or compressed natural gas buses. For those that aren't aware, the UNH bus fleet is run on primarily compressed natural gas. This one is a little bit more straightforward from my perspective in that while the tailpipe emissions are improved with compressed natural gas or propane, the environmental costs of fracking, which is how you get natural gas, are significant and agreed upon as having significant negative impacts in the communities where that is taking place, as well as significant emissions. So that's one piece of it, so that's the environmental piece. The second piece is that both of these, to do either propane or compressed natural gas, we would have to build facilities. There are ways to do that cheaper, as is detailed in this, by essentially leasing equipment. The EPA, I think it was the EPA, has, or the Department of Energy, has really looked at these costs And so those numbers are pretty good. They're a couple years old, but it's a significant expense. And where the Sustainability Advisory Committee went with this is that if we're going to invest capital expenditures, that we need to choose electric vehicles and really set our sights on vehicles that have a clear environmental benefit, as opposed to ones where the environmental benefit isn't as clear. So we are saying, no, we do not recommend going down this route.
So the technology around electric buses is still very much in the beginning stages, and the electric buses right now would be, very expensive compared to probably 3 times as expensive as a traditional bus. But as Sue and I were talking about this particular recommendation, we also thought about the other vehicles that the district owns. So, for example, there are now vans that have a hybrid electric gas. There's trucks out now that have hybrid gas. And so moving in this direction would be probably moving through the smaller vehicles in our fleet, vis-a-vis electric, and then let the technology around a bus develop a little further, and as we've seen, anything that develops over time, the cost goes down. So that's what we were thinking, even though your recommendation is not to go with CNP propane, we still think we can at least get our toe in the water in electric vehicles.
Right, and I think the other thing around electric vehicles and putting in charging stations and that kind of infrastructure is it's also teachers and staff, and all of a sudden it's a community thing, and that's something that Maggie and I have certainly been working a lot on this year, is connecting to other, not just Durham or UNH, but also statewide resources around issues like this, and participating in larger groups just to stay connected. So I think pretty clearly electric vehicles is the way to go, and working with the transportation department and trying to develop in the same way that we've done with the water bottles, a much more looking at the costs and a formal plan and what vehicles need to be replaced and when do they need to be replaced.
Very good.
So that plan will be forthcoming.
That plan will be coming. So has the committee taken on the responsibility of beginning to look at what vehicles would make sense?
I think we were going to put
begin?
that in goals for next year, that would be part of that document that you would see in the fall.
Have you guys talked to Durham, the Energy Committee? Because they're like, Charles knows everything about it.
Yeah,
Yes.
been in contact. And Sue and I have as well. So I just also want to commend you on this new approach of dialoguing with the board, because clearly you've taken a question, you've pursued it, you've researched it, and come back with a recommendation, and we can see all of that in these one-page reports that you're doing. So to you and to the committee, thank you.
Yeah, and we really want the board and Dr. Morse to see us as a resource. So when these questions come up or struggling, at a point where we're not making a decision, that the Sustainability Advisory Committee, we've got really wonderful people that help us get to these places.
So the big issue in our future, not immediate future, but soon, will be how to build a sustainable middle school.
Yeah. It's exciting.
Just saying.
Just putting it out there, right?
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, E-Ray, Josh?
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to talk about an RFP that we put out last month. It is for replacement battery backups across the school district and a handful of wireless access points. So we put the RFP out. The battery backups pretty much cover all of our networking infrastructure, servers, with the work that Jim Rizicki's done by putting a generator at every building. We used to have to try to keep things running in a power outage for hours because our phones go across all these systems. Now we only need to do a matter of minutes, so the systems that we're looking at buying are much smaller. And so that's what this RFP is for. The access points are, we just have a handful for the mass grave renovation, or addition of classrooms, because we're going to need wireless access out there. So that's basically what this covers.
Josh, can you adjust the fact that there's only one bidder so the board knows that how you validated the number?
Sure. There's a program called E-Rate. It's only for schools, and it's a national RFP process. So we put the RFP out, and anyone in the country can bid on it. For some reason, we only had one local company bid on it. After we got results, I contacted some of the vendors we work with and said, why didn't you bid on this? Would have been pretty easy. And they said, well, we just didn't see it. I did some research. We have some E-Rate consultants we work with. And we found that the prices were all within, normal ranges. We're not, it's not anything too high. So we felt comfortable bringing the one.
The fact that you only had one bid, you validated that the price was a reasonable price?
Yes.
And so you're comfortable with this?
Yes.
Okay.
And this will be, after approval, this is going to be for July 1, so this will be next year's budget. Because we went through E-Rate, they have a timeline that we have to follow. Everything has to be approved by, in March. So this will be coming out of next year's budget, and I do have the money in the budget.
And how much of this $24,988 will be covered by E-Rate?
So the way the E-Rate program works is we get a reimbursement based on our free and reduced lunch count. And you might be thinking, well, our free and reduced lunch counts aren't that high. The way the equation works out, we're going to be getting 30% of what we spend back. So it's actually not too bad with our single-digit free and reduced lunch numbers. So we won't see that money for a little while because we have to go through the process of spending the money, getting the equipment, and then we take all our invoices, send them into the E-Rate administration group, and they have to approve it. So we typically see anywhere from half a year to 12 months later before the money to come back.
I'm just going to ask some basic questions because I don't quite get what this is, okay? What does this do?
So these are units that are essentially just batteries. And they have two functions. They keep the incoming power out of the wall outlets. It cleans it, like especially at Mastway with an older building. We see spikes in it, so it makes sure that the energy that's coming out of the battery backup into the equipment is clean, because the electronics can be very sensitive. And so the other thing that it does is if it senses a drop in power, it starts running off the battery.
Okay.
So it keeps all the equipment running. So last Thursday, when I think every single one of our schools lost power, we didn't see a drop in, we didn't have the equipment just die off. Now at transportation, we did not have a battery backup and we lost equipment there. So it just protects our equipment. We buy it with a notification mechanism built into it. So as soon as it senses that it switches to battery, I get about 1 billion emails and texts. And we also buy with temperature sensors because we've had issues in the summer where we lose power for some strange reason. And in the past, we haven't had the generators. So the equipment keeps running, but the air conditioner can't run. So it fulfills a couple different things for it. But essentially, it is a battery to keep things running until power gets restored. With the generators, I think when I talked to Jim, we're under a minute for switchover. So everything's rated to be able to run. I think the smallest amount we could do is 5 minutes.
Okay, now is this, you probably told us this, but is this in one school? Is this system-wide?
District-wide. So currently we have 15 of these units. Of the 15, 11 of them are, they range in age from 5 years to 14 years old. And so they're really getting to the point where they're just not effective. After this last issue last week, we're running out of some batteries in some of the modules, and just the batteries alone are about $1,500 in some of our older modules.
Okay.
So it's just to make sure our equipment
Josh, is this
is running.
15 units replacing 15 units? Or is
We're
this more?
replacing 11.
So this replaces 11 units.
Yep, the other ones have been replaced within the last 2 years.
Okay.
And so on smaller units, we can get up to about 7 years. We have one big unit that we're going to put in the service building. It sits probably about this high, because that's where the majority of our servers live and all our internet access and everything. So that one is the more expensive one. But that one is rated for about 10 years. So this will get everything kind of started on a new cycle, and we'll build that into our replacement plan.
Okay,
So-
great, that's, Dan?
Just going back to the RFP process, it sounds like you had to do a lot of backtracking, so to speak, to validate the one submission that you got. Have we rethought perhaps future RFPs? Like, do we think that maybe we shouldn't use this service again, or should we rethink? Because it sounds like a lot of vendors that have relationships with didn't even know we were looking, so.
We can put out an RFP blind. We also, which is what Josh did, we also can call preferred vendors and say, we have an RFP out, we'd like you to bid on it. So the next time we put out an RFP, we'll call preferred vendors and say, this is out there. If you want to bid, we want to make sure you know. And we do that at different times with different companies, and so this is just one that we'll have to continue to do. We'll call our preferred vendors and say, this is out there, bid.
And this is the first time I've ever seen it happen, because E-rate is a huge program. They just changed the rules, so there's more equipment that's available for reimbursement, and typically you just get inundated with vendors. I don't know why. One vendor I spoke to, they have someone designated to monitor for bids, and that person recently left, so they didn't have anyone watching. And well, they missed out on a lot of money, so we'll see what happens. But yes, we're going to make sure that we communicate that out. I checked with our consultants, and we are allowed to be sending stuff out. It's a very regulated program. It's set up through the FCC, and if you notice on your phone bill, cell phone, internet, there's a little fee at the bottom that says Universal Access Charge. That's what funds this program, and it's several $billions, so it's just for schools. So.
Congress keeps on trying to cancel it as well.
Yeah,
Of course.
So if there are other questions for Josh, feel free. If not, we need a motion to approve this purchase, right?
yes, please.
Okay, could I get that motion? Denise?
I motion to approve the RFP as presented.
Moved by Denise, seconded by Brian.
Do you want to put the dollar amount?
Oh, for $24,988.75.
Okay, seconded by Brian. Further questions? No? All those in favor, please raise your hand. 6 in favor, the purchase is approved.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Josh. Middle school results in the competency surveys.
Just a couple quick things. First, I do want you all to know I do not love standardized testing, like Todd said. I don't. It's the best analogy I can use right now. It's kind of like snow shoveling, really. I mean, we have to do it, and if we're going to do it, we want to give our best effort and do the best job possible, really, and encourage kids, again, that it's give your best effort at it. So I'm not in love with that, Todd, you're wrong. Yeah, I mean, you want to be positive about things that you have to do, that's for sure. I think that just can rub off the kids too. In terms of, as you know, we surveyed parents, received 51 responses. I actually sent the survey twice because I was concerned. I wanted to give the school board, some information to you and what some parents were saying. I've met with teachers about this, what their thoughts, so it's just not about Jay Richard, what I think. A couple things I think, I think it was like 65% of the parents thought our progress reports were informative. A third felt they were not that informative. In terms of very clear feedback to me, having a parent forum. We've done that in the past, and we're going to do one very soon, sooner than later, definitely before April break. This is where you can help me out too. If you have parents expressing concerns to you in the community as school board members, please encourage them to come in and meet with me. It's been very helpful to me in terms of when parents express concerns or have questions that they come in and meet with me. I mean, that's what I'm there for, to, you know, help them out and help explain things. Another very clear thing in the survey to me is, we've talked about this, I know we talked about this last spring, in terms of the importance of narrative to parents. At the very least a sentence or two in terms of how is your child doing? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? And I mean, I think that's something important. I look at it as my responsibility to make sure we're providing good professional development for our teachers, to make sure we continue to work hard on that, to make sure that's as informative as possible for our parents. And again, parents, if they have questions how their child's performing in school in any subject area, or even in their habits of learning, if they're not motivated or they have some challenges, come in and meet with our teachers. We have team meetings daily, so that's what we're there for. Another piece, I think, is, and I don't know this, but I think just due to the amount of people who did not respond, I think a lot of people are positive and happy with the things that we're doing here as a school. It definitely is a growth process in terms of, keep in mind that we've done it for a half a year. But the response from our staff in terms of how things are going have been very positive. We're also bringing in professional development. A big one's growth mindset. We've actually used Mike Anderson to come in and talk to us. What does growth mindset look like inside the classroom for students? And what does that look like in terms of, the learning we're providing our students, how we can continuously work on that. So those are just a really couple quick things. I'd be remiss not to mention, I mean, there was 11 respondents who would like to go back to like a traditional grading approach. And I look at it, that's my responsibility as the leader of the middle school, to make sure I'm working with those parents to talk about, why we'd like to make this change and why we're making this change and why we think it's better at this time for our students. But, every single voice is important. And again, I know I already said it, but I can't emphasize enough, if people would like to meet with me about this at any time, I mean, that's what I'm here for. So I'd be glad to answer any questions about anything or anything that stuck out maybe to you.
Well, I thought actually all of, reading through like the bottom, what people wrote in the comments, it's like it was pretty much everything that we expected, right? I mean, it was like, the initial one, I think there's still a hang up with people that they think that by moving to competencies, somehow their kid is less prepared than if they had A, B, C, or D, which I think we've talked about over and over.
Yep.
So I think there's still like, that it's not a harmful thing, that it really is going to improve you. It's something we're going to still have to keep working at. And I think the other thing that was, two other things that I picked up that I know we talked about, was the worry about what progressing meant. What does progressing mean in terms of a letter grade?
Yep.
So I think that's something we're still going to have to explain. And then again, the last one, we knew this was coming, which is like exceeds. Is there an exceed thing? So I think all the things that from the feedback were things that we discussed here when you guys were bringing this up. And it just is, I think it's just going to be an educational element with us continuing to go to parents about what it's about.
Yep. There's, it's a large room for growth. I mean, it's always the biggest room in the house, as I like to say, so in terms of improvement. So we have to do a better job, and that sole responsibility is mine as a school principal, to make sure that our parents are informed in terms of what our kids are learning and are able to do.
Well, I mean, I was not a big fan of what we approved last year, and it still seems to me that you have these really kind of nebulous categories, meets, progressing, and I think that it's going to be really important that you provide information that's more precise than those categories. And I was thinking as a parent, what I need to know. And I need to know three things, I think. I need to know areas of strength. I think particularly in the middle school, a parent needs to know, what is my student, like if there's an emerging strength in math or drama or whatever, what is an area of strength? What is an area, that's one, what is an area of reasonable progression? And a lot of times it may not be an area of strength, but the kid is, doing what's expected and making the progress. And then what's an area of concern? And I'm not sure this report card does that. Okay. Now, maybe to do that, you might, whether you need another category or whether you need to really say it puts a lot of weight on the narrative then to put in context all these kind of ratings, I think. And that narrative has to be pretty accessible, not buried for, I'm not sure how hard you have to do to get the narrative. In the old days, it could be right by the thing, how accessible that is. But it seems to me that puts in context those ratings. So, but I think the ratings themselves, we talked, we've gone back and forth, because you talked about transparency, but I'm not sure like progressing is that transparent a category, frankly. So and in reading some of the comments, and you don't know whether, it's a small sample, but I think there's a sense of is this a good report card? Is this a disturbing report card? Is this something I should be concerned about? I'm not sure those ratings really do that. So anyways, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tom. I think we need to be more informative to our parents what those mean. And my goal is to work as a team, across the school. These are areas of concern that parents are expressing, and what can we do to work together to make sure we're very clear what these things mean for our students and our parents. I think that's, the biggest room for improvement for sure.
And it seems, just to repeat that, I think then you have a report card that without a narrative, those categories are not framed or interpreted in any way for the parents. And so parents, it would be hard to say, is this something I should be concerned about? Has my kid had a good quarter, whatever? And I think that's what has to be worked on in this report.
I think there's a big education piece too with parents in terms of really showing them exactly where to find that information, because teachers are expected to write a comment in terms of where their kids are at. When I say a comment, a brief narrative. Jay has had an exceptional quarter in mathematics and has mastered all aspects of fractions. Period, in math, as an example. And I think sometimes parents are getting lost, going through Power School, where to pull and find those things. And I think that's a big piece of it where we need to do a better job. Again, it's on me to make sure parents understand that. We have created some videos. It's not a criticism of the parents at all, but one of the things it said, some of them struggled navigating it, but then some didn't look at the video either. So I just need to do a better job in terms of finding ways that I can get that into parents' hands that's easy to understand and simple. And when I mean by simple, something, a minute and a half video instead of a 4-minute video. We all know how we're challenged with time, and particularly when you're sending things via email. I think that's been a challenge. So I just need to do a better job of finding better ways to make sure this information is in the hands of parents.
Okay.
So not sure if this really adds anything, but again, tonight, following along with what Tom had mentioned, first, Jay, recognizing your optimism about everything is greatly appreciated, and 2, your willingness to go as far as possible to go. But to me, the way I look at this, not even talking about whether this form of grading is the direction we should be in, leaving that argument aside, to me this study really indicates we didn't connect with the parents in the district. To get 50 respondents out of how many middle school kids do we have?
We sent the survey to approximately 500 families.
Right. And then to read the comments, to me, it shows we really have not made the case to the parents what this system means, how to approach it in their interpretation, how to work with their own children, to work with the school to progress. So I think and you've expressed that willingness to go forward, but I think this indicates we really, and how many years in a row has it been our school board goal, better communication? You're running into that, not saying you've not made efforts, you have. But we, again, I think have failed to communicate, and by saying that, I don't mean you failed.
Yeah.
And but we failed to really address the parents of these middle school kids to understand what's going on, how to approach it, how to interpret it, and how to move forward and work best with their kids in the school. I wish I had answers, but I think we need to really explore that because that's what I'm coming away with this.
Yeah, and I asked nicely. I did. I sent it out twice. Please help me out. One of the feedback points from a parent, and I think it's important to me in terms of, like, for example, open house. Next year when we have an open house, do a much better job of explaining that to parents and make sure we target problems we've seen this year, so those are explained and answered right up front to parents next year. I think one of the things, again, it was brand new this year, and I think when we had open house, I think we're all learning together as a school, meaning all of our teachers, myself, as well as the parents. So I'd like to think that we'll be much more informative when we do that next year during open house, but we need to do it now. We just can't wait till then.
How often do parents, and maybe our faculty here could answer too, how often do parents schedule one-on-one with faculty as opposed to the group open house? Does that happen or not that much?
I think it's, say you have a team of maybe 90 parents. You might have 15 to 20 team meetings throughout the year for maybe 20 different families. I mean, anybody's welcome, but again, I do like to be positive, Kenny, in terms of I think there's many parents very happy with what we're doing in the school, and they don't need to come in and meet. Do you think that's accurate, Aaron? About 15 to,
Yeah, the numbers are accurate, about 20. Aaron Ward, by the way, middle school math. Numbers are accurate. I can say we've had probably 10 to 15 parent meetings this year, and it's interesting, the grading system doesn't come up. So I don't know if it's a sixth grade kind of thing, but the parents, at least in my experience this year, because at open house, we were pretty clear on the system as far as please contact us if you have questions and feedback, and I sent out follow-up emails kind of explaining things and screenshots of PowerSchool. So what I found more in the parent meetings is, how is my kid developing in the social world? Are there skills, where they need to be, aside from are they progressing or meeting, like what are you seeing? So it is interesting. I didn't think about that till you asked the question. A lot of it's really about the whole child well-being, and if anything, the habits of learning have come up a few times. Like we talked to our kid about the habits of learning, slipping from quarter one to quarter two. So like Jay said, we're accessible pretty much any time a parent wants to come in, within reason, of course. But the grading system, at least in sixth grade, in my experience, hasn't come up really at all this year.
So and last thing I'll say quickly, and so maybe it isn't a problem, but maybe one, and I don't know if it's correct, but as opposed to having a whole school, to actually have team meetings and have a special night for each team that's really focused on the team, and part of that could be a presentation, because maybe that might be more attractive to a parent than a big wide open house.
And 900 cars at the middle school looking for parking on an open house night. Yeah, and you know who my, I think the most helpful critic to me in terms of this process has been my students, talking with them about it. I have, as I've talked about, we revived the advisory program this year, so I have a group of 12 seventh graders who meet with me daily during advisory, and we talk about this a lot, and they've provided a lot of very productive feedback to me in terms of things that we can do better. So.
Yes. Brian?
Do you want to go?
Sure. Can you tell how many people, how active the parents are on PowerSchool? Like how many are actually going in there and checking? Because I'm willing to bet not everyone is 100% using it as it is, and that may be a challenge as well.
We can do that.
We can look at those numbers. You know, I think about that as myself, and for full disclosure, in terms of, I think it's our responsibility as educators, if our kids are having challenges as educators, that we reach out to parents proactively to talk about those things. And what I mean by full disclosure, you know, when I send my children to school, my own kids, meeting, my expectation as a parent is, if, you know, my kid's not doing what they need to do in school, you know, please reach out to me, because I was never have been one of those parents where I'm checking PowerSchool frequently. If anything, I'm guilty of checking it infrequently, so.
But is the use of the parents, is it a pretty good percentage that are using it, at least?
I can give you the exact numbers. I can find that out for next time and share, but I think sometimes teachers have been disappointed in terms of the amount. Sometimes parents don't check it. We remind parents when the reports are given to check it, but I'd want to say probably like 50 to 60% of the parents check it, and there's a fairly decent amount of parents who do not check it.
I think that might be part of the challenge, is to you got to kind of pull them into the process,
Yep.
get them more on there, and that's kind of a whole different
Yep.
animal that you have to deal with on top of, you know, these issues.
But again, I think if, you know, the middle school students are going home, they like their teachers, they talk positively about their teachers, they talk positively about the opportunities we're giving them after school with our clubs and things. I think our parents are, you know, that makes a happy parent, happy students.
Okay, this is kind of embarrassing. I was like, please don't check me on that.
Check me out right now. He's got a middle school kid.
It's like, sorry. But I swear my wife looks at it. But to me, you know, I mean, going back to what Tom was saying, I think in terms of like strengths, it's usually pretty easy to figure out what your kid's strength is, because if you talk to them, they tell you it.
Yeah.
And then what they're excited about really comes through pretty clearly. I think from a parent's perspective, as I age out of the middle school, is the worry is like, what are they not doing well at? And more importantly, what can we do about it? And so almost on PowerSchool, and again, I don't check all the time, you almost need something that is flagging certain things, you know what I mean, which would be really great. These are the areas not only that you're maybe not progressing at, but that we're concerned about. And then as a parent, you're like, what do I do? What can I do to make things better, is what you're trying to do for your kid. And so if there is something like that directs them, it leads to the conversation, a better conversation, I think, with the staff of like how to fix things.
Yeah. Over here. 95?
Conference.
Okay, so Todd says 95.3% of our parents have accessed PowerSchool at some point at the middle school, so that's actually, yeah.
Excluding Al.
Just one really, I mean, you know how I feel about this, but this has been a very positive aspect of the change for this year. And also, again, with advisory, we sit down with the kids and we have them get the laptops out once a week and pull up PowerSchool and sit down with them and go through with all the students. I have them go through a sheet, you know, how they're doing, where they're at, and if they're not where we want them to be and where they want to be, we make them create a plan right then and there and put it in writing, and the goal is to have access to the teacher where they need to improve during Bobcat time. So that's something new this year.
I was going to let Jake, because actually that's, ironically enough, that's what I've seen with my daughter. I didn't really feel, and she's told me, she's actually accessing PowerSchool.
Yep.
And then it's kind of told me what's going on. So I felt comfortable enough there.
Yep.
But I mean, so I think that system where you're building in the student kind of their own self-help is...
It's kind of personalizing their learning, and again, it's about them. So that's something new this year. And I can tell, I mean, I've never sat down with a group of kids and done that weekly, ever, but we're doing it this year.
So Jay, just following the conversation of the board, if you're doing that on a weekly basis, how powerful would it be for the students to take that information and write it up to their parents.
Yeah. Yep, that's something we definitely want to look at.
Yeah.
So I think with technology, emerging technologies, even sending reports home where kids are at much more frequently. But again, you want to do that in a strategic manner where you're not giving too much information too often. Because, I mean, think of the emails we get from certain people. There's a point where you're just like, I'll get to that later, and you never do, so.
Very good.
One quick thing?
Sure.
I had about 5 things I thought of as it went around, so I'll miss a few of them, but one of them, Kenny, the conversation about only the 50 or 60 families, I've had the same exact thought. It's, and Jay and I have talked about it a lot, and in the PLC, is that a good thing, a bad thing? Is it, we don't want indifference, but our parents, are they saying it's fine, I don't need to respond? So you're right, that's something we need to kind of look at and kind of tease out. As far as the comments, I think, Tom, you had talked about how hard are the comments to find. Power School was brought up a couple of times. That's something that's still kind of in transition. It's gotten better, I think, every year that I've been here for the 4 or 5 years, but I think it's still something that with Sue Johnson and our staff that we're looking at as far as we have good comments, but you got to go through 3 layers to get to it. So those are things we continue to kind of look at with the Power School updates and whatnot. And then, Al, as far as the Bobcat time and kind of making a plan, we do the same thing on our team with the advisory, where we once a week have the kids pull out computers and kind of make a plan. In the Bobcat, because someone had mentioned, what do we do when students do have an area of need? Bobcat time's not perfect yet, but I can say there's been a huge change from last year to this year as far as being able to flag kids that are in, pretty concerning areas. It'd be nice if it was a little longer, various tweaks to it, but just I can see we're on a good path with that. So that's just a few of the kind of thoughts I had as it went around.
Thanks.
Other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the time.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah. Okay, by board policy, we're supposed to have a self-evaluation each year. And I think, as I said at previous meetings, there's incredibly elaborate numerical grids that some boards use, and I thought we would just take a bit of time to talk about what things have gone well, what things needed to be improved, just to reflect upon the year. My sense about this year is that we've had events that have occurred and issues that have come up that have been very difficult to deal with and to stay on course with some of the things that we committed ourselves to do. I think we're not in bad shape because I think the middle school project has gone forward with the committee. I think that a lot of the work we did with Siemens, really kind of helped construct a forward plan for technology. I think we were a little bit slow off the mark for good reasons with the strategic plan, but it seems to be that's moving, and I think we're probably not where we thought we should be on that. And I think that issues of football and cell phone use, I think were issues we needed to deal with, but I think they're issues that took a lot of time and I think a lot of emotional energy to deal with. And so, I think there were some really stressful points, at least for me as a chair, going forward with those things. Those are just some observations I had. I think that not waiting, setting our goals earlier, I don't think it really created a huge problem for you. And I think you were concerned about that. But I think that not waiting till the end of the summer to start your goal, and then you have your goals and you have to immediately and start working on the budget. I think it's good for us to kind of know where we're going, earlier. So I think that was a good move last year. So those are just some things that I thought. So I'd be interested maybe we just take 15 minutes or so for people to comment upon things that could be better, things that worked, things that didn't work, the conduct of the meetings, my leading of the meetings, anything. Is it Ferris Bueller? You've seen Ferris Bueller, right? Anyone? Anyone?
You got one.
Okay.
I agree. I thought this was a difficult year just because I mean, we started out, and it was supposed to be that we were reviewing a lot of programs
Right.
that we were implementing. We weren't really going to add anything new. We were evaluating, and we then were promptly, I mean, the racial incident right away started us on a, I mean, it was an important conversation, one we needed to have, but it really occupied pretty much the first 2 months of the school year. And then we transitioned immediately into football and the budget. And the budget really was extraordinarily complex in terms of the Siemens agreement. In retrospect, with all the closing of the modules and that, it was a great plan that we've put forward. Unfortunately, the public thought the same thing, but we've, you know, by the time we've solved all that, we're into January, and then the cell phone thing has come up. And so it really, in terms of our reviewing and evaluating things, we've been pushed to the end of our time. So it's just, I mean, it's kind of a lesson about staying on track, I think, in the future, if that's possible. Putting our issues at the forefront and trying to craft other things around them, I think, is something we may have to do, just because, again, there just seems to be an increasing number of things that come up that drive us, and we have a finite amount of time. And again, we're in mid-March now, and we're homework and the foreign language and all that all have to be done. And, oh, by the way, we're going to start up on the next goal session. So it's like, I think we're going to have to be really being time management sensitive towards our goal is going to be really important in the future.
And I thought, too, that, like, you know, having one less meeting in September, you know, I think we also handicapped ourselves a little bit, and I think in February, we could have used another, I mean, not that you want a lot of meetings, but I think that set us back a little bit, too.
Yeah.
Brian, did you set this? No? Okay.
So just kind of looking at the criteria, I think we were very effective in formulating board goals, and I remember the conversations, and there, you know, I remember myself not agreeing with some, but I think the process was really good, and I think, Tom, you do an amazingly wonderful job in running the meetings. They're very efficient, they're civil, you really garner opinions from everybody. I think, as Al pointed out, the budget was incredibly challenging, and we had great assistance from Jim, from Sue Caswell, from Jim Morse, and I think that we, you know, kind of worked through that. But as it's been stated, I think we were really knocked off of our goals, and I feel we really didn't accomplish. I mean, if you look at a board running from election cycle to election cycle, and I read our goals, so I guess we've made a dive into looking at start time. We really haven't covered much ground at all in homework, and even in homework, we're just looking at high school, when a lot of the complaints we heard were from middle school. We're just hearing about the competency, and I think there might be a lot of holes in that. We've not heard anything about competency-based education in the high school. 5 was our communication goal. We've really not worked on that. World language, the one thing we did here was the recommendation to add world language, and because of budget constraint, we didn't. Number 7 was to talk about wellness and mental health, and we've not even touched that. We certainly, though, for the specific action goals, we are working on the strategic plan. I think that's underway in a very positive way, and the middle school facility is underway in a very positive way. But looking at evaluation as being something that we really should be very honest with, and we shouldn't sugarcoat, I think we got blown off course, and not to say we weren't dealing with things, but if we're evaluating ourselves based on setting goals and working on the goals, I don't think we really have done a very good job. And I'm not blaming anybody, and certainly I'm in it with everyone, but I hope in the future that if we have goals, we stick to goals, and if we feel that our goals can get blown away and they're not that important, then we really shouldn't set as many goals.
Denise?
I mean, I totally hear what you're saying, and I agree. It was definitely challenging in terms of the issues that came up that we didn't anticipate. And I do think that a part of it is that sometimes, parents are like, this is an issue, we want it solved now. And I know, just speaking for myself, with the cell phone, when it first came up, it was like, no, we need to push this off. And I really spoke pretty forcefully about the fact that we needed to do it after budget season, even though I feel like there definitely was pressure from the community to deal with it immediately. So I think it is hard for us, we want to be responsive to the community, but I'm hearing what you're saying, Kenny, and what you were saying, Alan, and it's like we need to be able to say to people, we hear you, we're not ignoring this, but we need to, there's got to be a time frame for dealing with these things. And I think what was maybe helpful in the cell phone situation was to let people know when we would be looking at it. So, maybe that's just something going forward, is when whatever issue comes up in September that we're not seeing now, or whenever it comes up, to maybe have to say, really, we can't deal with this right now, but we will deal with it at this point, as a way so that people feel like we're not just blowing them off, that we hear them and we know it's important, but we do have to, otherwise we don't make progress on the things that we've identified as priorities.
Yeah, I'm not sure how, I think with goals, I agree, Kenny, you went through them very thoroughly, and clearly there are several that we really have not addressed. The goals are the planned, and then there is the unanticipated. I'm not sure, how, I think we need to allow ourselves a little bit of leeway with the unanticipated, and I think certainly it ate up a lot more time and energy than anybody probably would have imagined. But one thing I think we can probably do a better job of is develop more of a routine of reviewing where we are on any given goal at every meeting. And, I guess what I have in mind is something more like a consent agenda, where in advance we sort of have that update. Over the summer we've developed the general itinerary of, we'll have a meeting on homework at this point in the year. And, I think it would also give Dr. Morse an opportunity to say to us, hey, listen, this is what we imagined, but then this is what transpired. So we're going to have to maybe push this back or move this around. Because I think it's a really easy thing to get caught up in those, as Tom said, a lot of these issues are frankly very emotional and draining and time consuming, and they need to be. But if we develop a better routine, I think, of just acknowledging what we thought we were going to do and when we were going to do it, we could probably do a better job of at least not being surprised at how we've sort of lost track.
Others?
Yeah, and I just wanted to emphasize, I'm not being critical.
No, I think that's what this is for.
Yeah, I think your idea is really well, and I even, analogous maybe was when there were specific kind of goals that were being developed from the strategic plan that the elementary schools were looking at, the middle school and the high school. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Morse, periodically you brought back, and there was kind of a grid, and you kind of tracked where we were on that grid. And things were checked off, things were in progress, and you had a schedule. And maybe that would help us, as I think your idea is a very good one, to just kind of keep sense of that, because it's very easy. You have a group of parents in front of you, and you wind up going left and forgetting where we have really chosen we had wanted to go.
Todd does that with town council. He comes back periodically and, we've checked this one off to kind of bring us back into a reality sense of where we are in terms of our goals. Because honestly, by the time you hit the budget season, when we were deep into that, it's almost like the goals become a complete secondary thing. You're just so hyper-focused on getting that budget to the budgetary goal, putting it all together and trying to get it to the voters, that you just lose track of the other things. And so having something that, again, keeps bringing that back to us so we have a sense of where we are, maybe during that end budget cycle, we can build little pieces of what our goals were in there, just to kind of keep them relevant, because again, like some of them, it feels like we're mid-March and we're just beginning to pick up on them, and it's going to be I keep looking ahead, I'm like, we have that small window ahead of us that is going to be really packed until summer, so.
And I wonder whether to use, whether we use the full year effectively, because it seems to me there's sometimes when when you really have to buckle down and get the budget done, and then I sometimes think that after election time, and maybe this year will be different, there's and then you're kind of waiting maybe to set your goal, whether we really have to use that time more effectively. And I think whether we actually had enough meetings, because if you have like an intense issue where you have 30 minutes of public comment, and you have these other things, it just felt like we ran out of I mean, I think you're partly right about keeping on focus, but it felt like there wasn't enough time to do what we needed to do.
Definitely.
And there weren't. And, unless you want to shut off this conversation after 15 minutes, I mean, I think sometimes you can't just, I think Dan was saying, you can't just say, we're not going to deal with it. This thing's coming at us, you do have to deal with it. But whether we had enough time to deal with all the things we needed to be dealing with.
I wonder do you think that on that same light that we use summer effectively enough? Because we really kind of lighten our load during summer, and I'm looking at us where we are right now and what we have to accomplish, and maybe we have like those long breaks, and everybody loves those long breaks, but I mean, maybe that is something we need to re-examine, that over the summer we do kind of crank some stuff out.
Just, listening to what the board said, certainly I think Dan's onto something. We were doing that. This year we completely got sidetracked by not just small issues, and one of them was huge in relation to diversity, but you also need a time to renew. If we start having lots of meetings in the summertime, then there's no time for anybody to kind of take a step back from the work. And I think that, we do meet in the summertime. We meet once in July, and then we get right back into the cycle in August. I would be concerned that, we would fall into the trap of, overworking. We do need time to breathe between the end of the year and the start of the year. So that's my only thought on that. I think the other suggestions are really dead on, and I think we can figure out a way. I mean, we were doing it before, we can do it again. But we definitely were thrown off by pretty significant issues that were very draining.
But maybe just, I think on the positive side, I think the in-depth work we do with Siemens really kind of helped us lay out a strategic plan for facilities. I really feel pretty good about where we are there. I actually think the cell phone issue crystallized in my mind that we really have to start thinking through the role of not just what is the role of technology in education, and how are we going to provide the resources so we can use technology effectively in education. I think put that on the agenda.
Yeah, it's pull the technology plan itself to the forefront.
Yeah. And I think, just to maybe repeat, I think the middle school, with this committee that's been set up, I think it is on track to come to us with the recommendations, like 2 or 3 viable plans. And I think that was because I think we've been talking about it for a while, and I think we've actually made progress on that. And that is a big, big deal, I think. I think it's kind of on people's radar now that this is an issue that we have to kind of work on. So mixed success, I think.
One thing I want to reiterate is the issues that came before us were very, very emotionally packed. And they really had the potential to cause a tremendous amount of divide, of a lot of antagonism. And I think, Tom, with your leadership, those issues, even though there was some unpleasantness, I think they were done respectfully. And I think that that's very, very important, because I think there are several issues that could have really blown up us as a board and us as a community, and to have kept that going in a positive spin, I think
Well, thank you.
should be recognized. So.
Thank you, thank you. Appreciate that. And I think as a board, we have a style where we, I think like with the Siemens, I think when that first came in, I didn't get it.
Right.
I didn't get that it was such a big thing, and I think we went like almost 4 meetings to work through, I think, to where we got to a sense that to make a decision. And I think by the time we got there, and it probably took more time than, you imagined it would take, or Jim Rizicki or anybody, but I think by the time we got there, we felt like we understood it. We felt like we could make a decision, and I think that's been our style. And I think that's kind of the way we're working with cell phones, the issue, that we're going to like work it and work it and work it and work it, and then we'll get to a point where we could make the call. And I think by that time, there's kind of a consensus that feels like it's formed. And I think that's when we're at our best, I think.
Yeah.
Denise?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, again, sometimes people, may be impatient, but I think it's important. I think the time that we've taken on these issues, and ultimately we've had a better outcome because we've done that, it's given folks time to think about it, and certainly, even the example of the start time, going back last year to the start time and taking all that time, and then ultimately, Jim coming up with the idea for the busing, if we had just tried to sort of rush that through with the initial, you have this option or this option, whatever, I know there were like 3 or 4 options, but, so sometimes it is frustrating, but I think the outcome is better if we take more time.
So I'd like to paraphrase Kenny and Al. Al from the very first year he was on the board, and Kenny just now, which is we can do a few things well, or we can do many things maybe inadequately. And when a lot of things are on our plate, we will do things very successfully like Siemens, and other things less successfully because the time isn't there. So when we do our goals, the board goals, I think a number of the goals that we had on our plate this year will automatically continue into next year. So I'm suggesting to the board, as we think about looking at our goals for next year, that we look at our current goals and not be adding more than what we actually can accomplish. And if we focus on a few, then when the issues that we didn't anticipate come to us, because every year there's going to be an issue or 2, in this particular year it was 3, that will distract us from where we thought we were going to be when we started the school year and where we actually are. I'm really pleased with where we are on the strategic plan. I'm really pleased with where we are in relation to
Middle school.
The middle school. So there's 2 issues that, we didn't let get sidetracked. The strategic plan gets sidetracked by a couple of months, but we're right back on the right timeline now, so we've made up for that lost time. But I do think that is an absolutely correct assessment. If we have too much on the plate, we're not going to get it done the way we want to. And if we have the right number of things, we'll do it extremely well. And Siemens was done extremely well. Is a good example. The start time took us 2.5 years before we made that decision.
Yeah.
And so we took all the time we needed to make an informed decision. And if it wasn't for a shortage of drivers at the beginning of this year, it would have gone off flawlessly. The design was the right design. So, just a lesson learned. Al reminded of us when he was first on the board. Kenny just reminded it of us just a few minutes ago. And I think we need to keep that in the forefront of our minds as we talk about group goals, because there's always going to be something that comes up that'll throw us, and this year happened to be a lot of some things.
Thank you. Okay. I think we have just one other motion. We need to approve the replacement for the Oyster River boys soccer coach. Could I have a motion on that? Brian?
Motion to accept the new boys varsity soccer coach.
Moved by Brian, second. Dan? Discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor? 6 in favor. That replacement is approved. School board committee updates. Denise?
Policy committee met today, speaking of cell phones. So, oh goodness, I don't have my notes in front of me, so help me out. We are going to, yeah, I really don't have my notes in front of me. Basically, we're going to look at a process where we have the information, we're going to put it on the agenda for the, oh yeah, I do have that.
Next meeting, the survey will be there.
Right, but I was just trying to
And-
remember the dates, which has written down, which meetings.
So next meeting would be about having a discussion about where the board wants us to go. You'll have the
Right.
survey results, and we
Right.
had over 800 people respond, K through 8. And, we need to frame the conversation as to what's the parameters that the board wants in terms of a revised draft. We're hoping to get that out of you at the next meeting.
Right.
And then 2 meetings later, have a draft for your consideration based on the conversation next week.
Right, so to basically to have it come back to policy committee by April 11th, and then to have a sort of a general first read by April 18th.
Right.
And have a discussion before that, but yeah, so there's basically, we laid out the process.
Just it, and we'll be bringing a school lunch payment policy to the board that's reviewed. And then the last thing the policy committee is looking at is kind of talking about whether in our policy we can incorporate something maybe like a living memorial, something that kind of recognizes Oyster River faculty or maybe even student after time has passed to kind of recognize them in some way that adds to our district as a whole, that's a positive kind of impact from a loss.
So those will be coming.
Right.
Yep. The middle school facilities committee met and reviewed possibilities for sites, off, not the site we have now, but are there sites in the district that might be possibilities for middle school? And so it's really interesting to look at, access and issues and, pluses and minuses for those. And then we've rated pretty much probably half maybe of the possibilities. And so the next meeting, we're going to rate some other off-site possibilities. And as I see it, we're on track to come back to the board with, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 viable possibilities.
Yeah, the goal would be to whittle the 13 options that we started out with down to possibly 3, and then put that in front of the board for further review.
Yeah, so I think we're on track. And really, really incredible skill on that committee. I mean,
great people.
It's really, really been very gratifying to be on that. Okay, other committees? No? Okay, public comment? No? Okay, so you have future meetings as listed. Voting day is come and gone. So the next meeting will be the first meeting of the new board. So that'll be the, really to have the voting and officers. April 4th will be a regular meeting, and April 11th is, we're going to try for the homework workshop. Okay, and if people have ideas for that, let us know. We thought, clearly there's a committee that's been set up to look at the results of the surveys and to come to us with their interpretation of future action that might be taken. But I thought it also might be interesting, since one of the things we talked about was hearing from students whether there could be like a contingent from the student council who might also come in and look at that survey information and talk to us about what they see what implications they see, how they read that. I think that would be an interesting kind of getting those multiple perspectives. So we're kind of thinking about, building that in. And then obviously there'll be a lot of time for us to talk among ourselves. Okay, so that's coming up. Okay, so need a motion to go into non-public session for superintendent's evaluation. Could I have that motion, Kenny?
Sure. So under RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, A, C, matters which, if discussed in public, would affect the reputation of any person, I move that we go into non-public session by roll call.
Moved by Kenny, is there a second? Second by Denise. Could we have a roll call?
Dan Klein, yes.
Kenny Rotner, yes.
Denise Day, yes.
Tom Newkirk, yes.
Al Holland, yes.
Brian Cisneros.
Okay, we're going to go into non-public session.